Welcome to Sexually Charged Radio. I am your host, Ruthie, and I'm here with co-hosts Sheila and Aaron. And I'm so excited because I'm really angry about this topic. And Sheila brought up a great topic for us to discuss today on, I'm throwing air quotes everywhere, bromances. We should introduce ourselves before we dive into this situation.
Or get angry.
Yeah.
My pronouns are they and their, even though people constantly use she. That would be the wrong pronoun for me because I'm non-binary genderqueer. I almost threw the word vagina in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's okay. That too.
Vaginas are great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not non-vagina-ary. Anyway, I'm a faculty member in the Couple and Family Therapy program here at the University of Guelph, and I conduct research on sex and gender and relationships and kink and poly and all kinds of good stuff. And I also help train student therapists. I also co-chair the Guelph Sexuality Conference and supervise a bunch of student research on sex and gender and relationship topics as well. Do you want to introduce yourselves, Sheila and Aaron?
I am Erin Watson. I'm a PhD candidate here at the University of Guelph. I'm also a sessional instructor for a fourth-year family theory course. I study most things gender, sexuality related, but currently focusing on sexting and digital sexualities, and also work as a therapist as well.
Awesome. How about you, Sheila?
I'm Sheila. I go by the pronouns she and her. I am an undergraduate student, third year in the Adult Development program, as well as I have a minor in Psychology and Family Child Studies. I'm with the Wellness Center that answers the questions we get
Ask SC at uguelph.ca.
And I'm a self-proclaimed sex nerd. I am interested in everything sexuality related and enjoy being on these podcasts.
Fantastic. So Sheila found this article. I'm going to try and bring it back up again. Here we go. And you can see it on the big screen here too. It's probably easier to read. So the article was in what? The National Post was the summary piece. And what was the title of that news article?
Air quotes, Rise of the Bromance is Bad for Women. Could become, and more air quotes, Genuine Lifestyle Relationship Study.
Interesting.
Yes.
And so we tracked down the original journal article that this was reporting about, which is titled The Bromance, Undergraduate Male Friendships and the Expansion of Contemporary Homosocial Boundaries. So for folks who are not familiar with the word homosocial, so homosexual is same-sex attraction, if we're thinking of binary sex and gender. Homosocial would be same-sex social things like friendships or hanging outs, stuff like that. All of us had some thoughts and feelings about this. Who wants to be angry first?
Oh, man.
I feel like you had the most anger. So I feel like we need to let you liberate
Oh
that
my goodness,
first.
thank you. Thanks for my platform. So I feel like I need to make a list to remember the things I'm upset about. So I'm going to go through them in summary first, yeah, if you wanted to. So the first one is, why do we need a specific word for male friendship? So I understand in the journal article that they were focusing on something that I might call best friend friendships or particularly close friends, but they've come up with a certain word to make it both masculine and unique from mixed gender friendships that are very close, or same-sex female friendships that are very close, or queer on queer friendships that are very close. So this leads me to a whole bunch of upset, like why we call strap-on sex, where women are strapping it on to men, pegging, and we can't just call it sex or strapping it on or anal sex. Why we can't call everybody a nurse instead of nurses and male nurses. Why it's a man purse or a man bag. And so this whole issue of having to have special language for men's experiences of things that are quite everyday for all people. Or when I say all people, for across demographics of people, not necessarily for every individual. Of course, the National Post article talked about how this is just going to be the downfall of heterosexual relationships, and Aaron brought up, encouraging this competitiveness or this fear-mongering sort of situation. So that's quite upsetting. And then I'm also upset because, so here's the thing. I struggle with holding the socially appropriate and respectful way of recognizing that research is hard to do. It all has limitations. I don't want somebody else to go on a radio show and spend half an hour ripping my research down. Mm-hmm. Constructive criticism, welcome. Just ripping people down, not welcome. So with the fact that I'm really upset about how some things appear to have been done here. So we're looking at the list of participants, which were 30 undergraduate men that were interviewed, which the National Post should not be presenting in a way that might lead the reader to think is a very, very large number of men across all sorts of age and life, place, demographics. Mm-hmm. But also 29 of them are white and one of them is Eastern European. So this also should have been said as young university white men's experiences of emotionally intimate same-sex relationships.
And also heterosexual versus mostly heterosexual. I
don't know if they purposefully excluded less straight than mostly heterosexual men in order to really go as no homo as possible on this study, which I say with love for the homos as someone who identifies that way, or not. So I don't know, but it definitely should have been somewhere in the title or the abstract that these are straight, white, young men, and not just saying that they're men who are university undergraduates and not paying attention to these other demographics, because they are age 18 to 22, it looks like. Yeah. So this is also a time period where people are thinking about how they relate with their own genders and other genders maybe differently from other times and places in life. Okay, that's my list. Erin, what are you thinking?
Oh my goodness, how do I even put all of my thoughts in order? Obviously, there's a little bit of a rant here just based on how sexuality research is portrayed in mainstream media. You know, this is not a unique circumstance whereby the original study seems to be a little bit embellished, misconstrued, overly extrapolated to make for a bit more of a sensationalized narrative in the media. So that in and of itself, you know, is problematic, but just going off of the title alone, why are we automatically thinking that men being close to other men, emotionality, vulnerability, sharing, connection, snuggles, anything, why is that threatening to women or heterosexual pairings when there's so much of a dialogue right now about the emotional labor that female-identified individuals are expected to put in traditionally heterosexual relationships? I'm thinking, wow, what an opportunity for men.
Sounds great for everybody.
For everybody.
Everybody gets to have a best friend. That sounds great.
To be close and to share and to be emotionally open and to know that in a culture that, you know, that we can describe as, you know, toxic masculinity is a bit proliferated. Doesn't this help in some way dismantle that?
So you're referring to some of the cultural conversation that's going on about how straight cis men are kind of coming to this idea, or it's socially enforced this idea that the only way to get emotional intimacy, but also just platonic touch, is through relationships with cis women that are sexual in nature. So all of your touch, if it's platonic, it's through someone you're also having sex with, but probably it's mostly sexual touch. And you can't just spoon without genitals for some reason. And also that the emotional connection and has to come in these heterosexual pairings of dating relationships, which becomes labor and laborious when it's not mutual and when there's a huge load of it on somebody without the mutuality.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And then there's that final layer of just offering space for men who are socialized to maybe suppress some urges to be more vulnerable or more emotional in maybe I would say maybe more the Anglo-West culture. Why would we find it so problematic that male-identified individuals are finding a new space for that? And then if it is with other male-identified individuals, that just, helps kind of spread the word about, hey, this is maybe great and acceptable,
So I'm thinking, as you're talking about all this, I'm thinking, yeah, like women do, which comes down to the sexism of, oh my gosh, some straight cis men are being like a woman. What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that?
Right.
That means that there's no need for women. Except as sex objects, according to the National Post, which I only read the abstract in the first half of this journal article, and there's nothing in here actually really talking about women at all.
Yeah.
Although they do interview the researchers in the National Post article, and I had thoughts and feelings there, but we never know how out of context those quotes are. I've certainly been misquoted a ton of times in the media, and people just pull out those little phrases and concoct a sentence. What's going to sell the
what's going to get the sensation.
Sheila, you found this article. What were your... This is your fault.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm so glad you brought all this. So what were your initial thoughts and feelings as you found this? Because it stood out to you enough to bring it up to us.
Oh, definitely. I read this, and the first thing was, I wonder what Dr. Ruthie's going to have to say about this. Will they still want to talk to me after this?
We're going to have a bingo card of my responses for certain things. Yeah.
And I was just so perplexed at how did this get posted, or just the wordings, and I found it was very overgeneralized. There was something that stood out to me here, and I'm reading directly off the National Post article, and it says how women they maintain friendships through there's quotes around it, sharing emotions and disclosing secrets. But men shared almost nothing of their emotional life and only knew they were friends if they participated in activities together, like playing sports, drinking, fixing things, or gambling, more air quotes. The paper argues.
Can I just also say that women participate in activities together, too, as a hallmark of friendship. So I don't understand why that thing was gendered masculine. I mean, was there some sort of survey where women said we don't actually do things together? Or is it not doing a thing together if you communicate and share secrets?
Yeah.
The gendering of that language for the descriptions of masculine and feminine activities is extremely troubling for me.
Yeah, and that's why I felt the need to bring it up, because I have many friendships, but I don't share my secrets with all of them.
Right.
I have a few close friends that do that, and some of them are males.
What counts as a secret? Also, if you're sharing, it's probably not secret. Just to say. So I think there's a lot of judgment in the phrase sharing secrets. I think maybe it's talking. Maybe what's happening is some form of communication that we've now called sharing secrets.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one? Sharing secrets and doing what? What?
Sharing emotions and disclosing secrets. And it says how men shared almost nothing of their emotional life and only knew they were friends if they participated in the activities, like playing sports, drinking, fixing things, or gambling. I'd be tired if was doing activities all the time, It's just...
Right. And certainly I think masculine folks are not raised to be as attuned to their own emotions and to have as rich a language around their emotions and to feel like sharing emotions. And there may also be attributes to having more estrogen or more testosterone in your system. Emotions are experienced in different ways, but that doesn't mean folks with a lot of testosterone don't have emotions, don't have a range of emotions, couldn't clue into those emotions with the same kind of training that feminine people get about cluing into it. They still might be experienced somewhat differently, but clearly there's a large socializing impact on this. Even if there is a bit of nature, there's a lot of nurture in this for sure.
I also feel that with the whole mentioning of, female identifying people maintain friendships through sharing emotions and disclosing secrets, that's just the whole stereotype of, girls just like to sip their wine and gossip. You know what I mean?
We're gonna paint our toenails and have a pillow fight where the feathers fly everywhere. We don't worry about the mess.
Lacy.
Yeah, this is how we have friends.
You know what? And someone's gonna have to rein me in on this because it's not a
We're not gonna just
thought out. I don't even know where I'm going with it yet. I'm thinking from a feminist perspective here, how chastised or made fun of in society, like emotionality. You know, oh, if it's associated with the feminine, it's bad, therefore we kind of don't want it. We just want people to be assertive and aggressive and, you know...
Because cognitive is privileged.
Yes, pragmatism and cognitive work and so the emotionality piece is just like, oh, whatever, women's domain, we don't value it. But as soon as we start to see a benefit of it for men... all of a sudden we're like, ooh, emotionality and connection, what a great thing. This could transform into amazing, you know, platonic male relationships that will be the new standard of you know, raising families. And it's like, this is not a new idea.
No.
This is, people have been doing this for ages, and women and feminine individuals have been doing this for ages, but no one respected it until it benefited you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and why must we really isolate this to straight men? Like, why could we, if we're saying that this is a positive thing for men, and we're saying it's homosocial, and we're making these kind of implications that it's not gay, even though it feels gay. That's basically what this article is saying over and over again. So if we're saying this, like, not gay feels gay thing is great for cis men, why are we not running to the gay guys and being like, lead us in better health and social well-being? But we're still keeping this, we're still being really weird about the sexualities in this.
That's interesting. I feel like we're almost sexualizing just a sort of normative way of interacting as humans. So, for example, there's this idea, can straight men and straight women be friends?
Oh my
you know, like, if a woman is disclosing, or if he's disclosing to her, it must be there's a crush, or else you're going to get
Sexual
in a friend
tension.
zone.
That's
or-
the eternal question.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt for a second to let people know that we are very angry here at Sexually Charged Radio on CFRU. If you are in the Guelph, Ontario area, CFRU.ca if you want to listen online or through YouTube. And you can send in your questions and topics for us to have strong feelings about, which are connected with strong cognitive responses, and both are equally valid at asksc@uoguelph.ca. So this time eternal question of can straight cis men and straight cis women be friends without some other sort of sexual tension? First of all, why can't you just be friends even if there is some sexual tension? Why can't people who sleep together also be just friends? Why can't we believe that friendships can exist without sexual tension? Like, why can't we
And why again, we're putting everything in a certain categories. Like, if you identify as heterosexual female, then when you're hanging out with your girlfriends, you're never going to experience weird feelings around them. Like, no, everything is so fluid. Why are we trying to say there's a type of homosocial bonding, and then separate from that, there's homosexual bonding, and then there's straight bonding, but not between these types of And it's like, what?
Why these weird categories? Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, it's you. It's all you. I'm just mad.
We all of our veins are bursting out. Even when you were saying if females are hanging out with females and they won't experience that, if they do, it's automatically sexualized. Like, oh, that's so hot.
That is. Like, I want to watch these two besties get drunk and snuggly.
Yeah.
You know?
But, like, two male-identifying people were to do it.
Yeah, that's not a consumable commodity for the people that this article was written for.
Like, yeah, LOL, that's so homo or something.
And so that's a really good question. Who was this article written for?
That's
paranoid straight women. People who want to make cis straight women paranoid.
Yeah.
Because it is that whole, like, oh, now there's a thing to compete with. Now your special job is lost, so now you're just going to be a sex object. Hey, heads up, we've been sex objects for a really long time. So no new news there, if there is any kind of increase. But, yeah, I mean, it reminds me of... So now, you know, Teen Vogue and these other magazines are, like, leading the forefront in some really great news.
Don't forget
Cosmo, right?
Oh,
Years ago, they were not so leading the forefront in great news. It reminds me of those old-timey articles from those magazines that were like, how to get a man and keep him, Kata, like all this other stuff that really built this competitiveness that you've both been mentioning, and this kind of sense of paranoia and this sense of like, what's my job? Let me get back to the basics of what it is to be, well, it's not good enough to just be a sex object, because of course no straight cis women would ever want to just have sex with anyone. I have to be a sex object and be emotionally burdened at the same time. Then that's okay.
It's very interesting how any sort of sense that female identified individuals had, that they had a certain level of power in a type of relationship, is now being taken away. You know, or the implication is that it's being taken away. If you don't have this emotional connection and the male partner is going to their male friends, well, what do you have left to offer?
Right.
And it's interesting because, Sheila, you were reading part of the National Post article, and it was alluding to the fact that men are preferring these male bonding relationships because women are constricting them or telling them the parameters of how they can and should act.
And the guys have to posture and do stuff in order to please them.
Which doesn't seem to be in the research.
It might be later in the article, but it wasn't in the abstract, which is where you would see main themes like that, and it wasn't in the intro. And also, like, the age group, these are young men of a particular stage of late adolescence who also, if they're at a university, are now exposed to a bunch of probably new people. So there's all sorts of different ways of thinking about intimate relationships and gendered relationships that are specific to the age and context going on here. Of people being in heavy transition and relocation and place in life being different. How might it be for 18 to 21, 22-year-olds, straight cis men who are still hanging out in the same neighborhood where they were born with the same community groups? Like, I would be curious to see how that might differ from here to there.
Yeah. I just have a question. I'll put it out to both of you. The narrative that if you are female identified, cis woman perhaps, that emotionality is what you seek in all your relationships.
Yes.
In your heterosexual pairings, in your female friendships, creates this very limited scope of what I'm using air quotes, women are after in how they relate to and bond with people. Certainly vulnerability, emotionality, great traits to have, but is that all women want? I mean, don't we do other things too? Maybe sexuality, maybe domestic divisions of labor. Maybe we also want to go build things with our friends and partners. I'm wondering what...
How about Erin? It's so much easier to say we don't know than to just listen. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we as a society.
Yes.
Not we at this table.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think, Sheila?
I'm just processing all of this, but that's a very good point you raise. I honestly don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry, maybe come back to me. It's just so much to process, I think.
Because it does assign a certain job, a certain value to a certain job for a certain gender group, right? And if you can't be that person, then what's even your point in existing? Like, what else could you possibly want? What else could possibly be valuable?
And then, even when you mention, like, women, people who identify as women, they seem to, like, seek out all that. And then you have those who don't want that, then they're viewed down, like, and then you hear all these slang terms, you're a whore, you're a hoe.
You're antisocial.
Yeah. Or the ones who just don't want the emotionality and just want some pleasure, just some fun,
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not to be emotionally responsible for their partner. Like, maybe some emotional connection, but not responsibility for being the only person who can fulfill this stuff for somebody. So everybody should, think about if best friends might be good for them. And that might include some sort of platonic physical contact. And anybody could have that with anybody as far as gender dynamics and sexuality go.
Yeah.
And there are people who are jealous when their partners have a best friend. I mean, that I see that. I see that with people who can't handle that. And it could be that there are things in the intimate relationship that a partner is avoiding discussing or processing because it's easier to have that with other people and not with this partner. And maybe it would benefit them to also have it with a partner as well as with best friends. So there could be some unhealthy things happening, but it's not unhealthy to have good friends and also be dating somebody. Or to have good friends and not be dating somebody. That's also good.
Yeah. And I like, or no, I like is definitely not the right way to start that sentence. The title of the National Post article alludes to the fact that this may be a trend that culminates in different types of domestic arrangements, so that men will have bromances and live together that way and have different responsibilities and constraints, basically changing the landscape of what we know as sort of the nuclear household, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, again, is that a bad thing?
There's plenty of adults that form families that don't have sex with each other.
Exactly. Takes
And
a
sometimes they
village.
wish they were, and sometimes they're happy they're not.
Yeah.
But that is one of many totally legit and maybe even easier to manage
Definitely.
ways to have a family or components of a family.
Yeah, that's taking that pragmatic, that functional way of running a household with finances, possibly children, different arrangements, and then perhaps emotionality and sexuality is part of it, but perhaps the emotionality and sexuality is something you get outside the home. And it's nice to be able to expand our perceptions of what it means to, air quote, be a family.
Right. Well, no one person is meant to be everything to another person. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for listening along. You've been listening to Sexually Charged Radio on CFRU. If you're in Guelph, Ontario, cfru.ca. If you're online or perhaps on YouTube, make sure you send in your thoughts and questions and topics to AskSC@uoguelph.ca, and we will see you on the next episode.